Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. And for all my continued followers, I want to say thank you. And this is an opinion-based video channel where I try to open your eyes and ears up to some of the travails and tribulations that take place throughout our cities, our states, our country, and sometimes around the world. And this unfortunate tragedy that took place about a week ago, it deals with the state of Texas, where that huge flash flood that decimated a campsite for preteen and teenage female young ladies the floods and the rains ended up decimating and causing ravaging damage, and many people lost their lives in this flood. And it makes you wonder what is going on with climate control. And there have been here recently in the last year and a half to two years, we've had at least 3 other major catastrophic disasters that have taken place. So for those of you who recall, if you remember Hurricane Helene, that hit the coast of North Carolina all the way down to Florida. That was on the East Coast, and that was billions of dollars of damage, lives lost. FEMA had to come in and provide assistance. And if you remember, in the last 8 or 9 months, you had the California wildfires that decimated many parts of LA County. $1 billion worth of damage. FEMA had to provide assistance again. And then here recently, on May 16th, 2025, a devastating tornado hit St. Louis, Missouri, the city of St. Louis, which has not happened in at least 70 years. There was $1.6 billion worth of damage, 8,000 buildings destroyed. There were a few loss of lives. And I'm here right in St. Louis, and I had to bear witness to that scary tornado. And now you have this situation in Texas that, and in reference to the Guadalupe River, this campsite where there were several hundred preteen and teenage girls, and they had a catastrophic event take place where there have been over 100 people that lost their lives in this flood. And I wanted to do a story about it just to bring some attention to it. They say that the death toll in this devastating Texas flash flood climbs to at least 108 people, and that there are dozens still missing. So if you've been busy in your life and you're not familiar with what's going on, I'm going to talk about this in this video and bring some enlightenment to you. And it makes you wonder what is going on with all of these traumatic Mother Nature experiences. Is climate control a real thing? And we've had these recent catastrophes back to back here in America. So, but back to this Texas situation, they're saying at least 108 people are dead and dozens are still missing after devastating flash floods slammed Texas Hill Country, with water rescues taking place along the Guadalupe River, which rose rapidly on an early Friday morning to the height of a 2-story building. Several people remain missing from Camp Mystic, that's where the camp was, in Kerr County, a girls' summer camp that has been around for decades. It's called Camp Mystic. Of the fatalities so far, 87 have occurred in Kerr County, officials said. Camp Mystic, located along the river in Hunt, Texas, confirmed on Monday that at least 27 campers and counselors died in the flooding. Says our hearts are broken alongside our families that are enduring this unimaginable tragedy. We are praying for them constantly, the camp said in a statement. At least 5 Camp Mystic campers are still missing, at least 5, along with 1 counselor. Kerr County Sheriff Larry Letha said on Tuesday, this past Tuesday. There are about 750 children that were at Camp Mystic when the floods hit, the sheriff said. So almost 1,000 kids. This is a very popular camp for these young ladies. And to get hit and caught off guard like this with these torrential rains and this flooding and the loss of life is just unimaginable. Think about if that was your young daughter who's going off to camp to have fun, to have a learning experience, to focus on their maturity and their development, mentally, physically, to get away from their parents, enjoy their other friends and colleagues, and then this devastation hits them out of nowhere. It also says that Governor Abbott, he said, today I visited Camp Mystic and the river running beside it he said he visited Camp Mystic and the river running beside it were horrendously ravaged in ways unlike I've ever seen in any natural disaster. Abbott wrote in a social media post, the height of the rushing water reached to the top of the cabins was shocking. We won't stop until we find every girl who was in those cabins. Operations will continue around the clock to search for anyone affected by the deadly storms, the governor said during a briefing on Sunday afternoon. In addition to the dead, officials have not been able to account for 41 people in various parts of the state, according to Abbott, who noted that figure may underrepresent how many people are truly missing. Abbott also said searches will persist throughout the Guadalupe River system in the hope of locating anyone else. And he asked the public to contact local officials with information about friends or relatives believed to be lost. And the Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said on Sunday that he ordered 3 swift water rescue teams to Texas. So you got the state of Florida that's trying to help Texas. This is where we need to come together as a country. It also said that at the Vatican, Pope Leo extended a prayer to the flooding victims during last Sunday's Mass, saying, I express my sincere condolences to all the families who have lost loved ones, in particular their daughters who were at summer camp. Think about the dichotomy there. You send your daughter off to summer camp to have a good time. You didn't send her off to a death trap, and that's what happened, unfortunately, due to abnormal circumstances with Mother Nature. And that has to be tremendously painful to the parents and the family members and loved ones who lost a loved one at this camp. Said that in the disaster caused by the flooding of the Guadalupe River in Texas in the United States, although Kerr County was hit hardest by the flooding, at least 21 other people have been confirmed dead across 5 other Texas counties. About 150 miles east of Camp Mystic, Travis County has confirmed at least 7 deaths, according to local officials. Travis County includes the Texas capital city of Austin. So there was torrential rains in Austin too. At least 5 people were confirmed dead in Burnett County on Tuesday. Abbott said 2 people remain missing in Burnett, a 17-year-old girl and a county fire chief. Derek Marchirio, the emergency management coordinator for the county, previously said that more than 50 rescues have been conducted countywide since the flooding crisis unfolded. Emergency management officials in Kendall County confirmed 6 deaths as of Monday and said rescue and recovery operations were still underway. And another 2 deaths were confirmed in Williamson County by county officials. It says earlier in Tom Green County, the San Angelo Police Department confirmed Saturday the death of a 62-year-old woman identified as Tanya Berwick. Police said Berwick was driving her vehicle when it became submerged by the floodwaters. So it has hit several counties, and there was bad torrential rain throughout the state of Texas. And of course, Texas has that migrant issue that's going on. This is the last thing that Texas needs, is to have this devastation and this catastrophic event take place and the loss of so many young lives. But the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, said that the U.S. Coast Guard was responsible for saving like 223 of those people. As dramatic video showed guard members conducting aerial rescues near Kerrville while dark water covered the ground. Kristi Noem also said Coast Guard rescue swimmer and Petty Officer Scott Ruskin saved an astonishing 163 victims in a devastating flood in central Texas. This was the first rescue mission of his career, and he was the only triage coordinator at the scene, and they called Mr. Ruskin an American hero. They said, "We've been rescuing people out of these camps by the hundreds, all day." Dalton Rice, the city manager of Kerrville, said on Saturday night. There's a lot of folks that are shelter in place, so we leave them in place to make sure that we got them food and water. Governor Abbott originally signed a federal disaster declaration in the immediate aftermath of the floods on early Friday, which he later updated to include several other counties in Texas that were damaged by the storm. So you got to remember, this was initiated by the storm. It hit central Texas and several counties surrounding, and unfortunately the Guadalupe River, which has a fork, just rose within minutes. They say as questions circulate as to whether the flood warnings and alerts were sufficient and effective, another summer camp near the Guadalupe River, Presbyterian Mo Ranch Assembly, has received praise for its rapid evacuation. So there were other campsites that were there, and in this particular one, they started noticing it about 1 a.m. in the morning that the torrential rains and the floodwaters were rising. Lisa Winters, the communications director for the camp, told the Associated Press that the facilities manager at Mo Ranch, this is at another ranch, noticed the river beginning to rise at about 1 a.m. local time on Friday. Although camp leadership said they had not received an evacuation guidance from local authorities, they quickly relocated about 70 children and adults who were staying overnight in a building near the water. So they made a quick response, that particular campsite, to move people in the wee hours of the morning. Because you got to remember, this hit Mystic Camp, they're saying between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. when people are still asleep or trying to get themselves together. But this other particular camp that I just mentioned, the Mo Ranch, the Presbyterian Mo Ranch Assembly, they started noticing it at 1 a.m. So thank God that there were people still up. I'm sure camp counselors and whatnot, and they started removing and excavating those folks or evacuating those folks in the middle of the night. So how did the Guadalupe River flood so quickly? Meteorologists say storms in the area converged with remnant moisture from what was formerly Tropical Storm Barry. So that's what got this thing all started up in the atmosphere, which made landfall in eastern Mexico earlier last week and moved northward. That produced exceptionally high rainfall totals in a region that is susceptible to flooding. So this area has been known to flood. Rice, Kerrville's city manager, explained how the Guadalupe River flooded so quickly. He said, when you look at the headwaters of the Guadalupe River, there's a North Fork and a South Fork. He said, since 1987, under normal conditions, if you can call it that, you'll hit water in one of those areas. And those two forks will converge into the Guadalupe, which comes through the city of Kerrville. So he said, under normal circumstances, if you can call it that, you'll hit water in one of those areas, either that North Fork or that South Fork. He said this rain event sat on top of that and dumped more rain than what was forecasted on both of those forks. He said when we got the report, it was about 7 feet or so on the South Fork. And within a matter of minutes, it went from 7 feet of floodwater to 29 feet. And all of that converged at the Guadalupe River. The Guadalupe River at Hunt reached its second highest height on record, higher than the famous 1987 flood, the city said, citing the National Weather Service. The Texas Division of Emergency Management had multiple meetings since Thursday to prepare, but the National Weather Service did not predict the amount of rain that actually fell. An official said, adding that forecasters originally estimated up to 8 inches of rainfall in that area, just 8 inches. Kerr County Judge Kelly said the area does not have a warning system. They do not. And authorities were shocked by the veracity of the floods. We had no reason to believe that this was going, that it was going to be anything like this that happened. So Kelly had said. So he had no reason to believe that this was going to be anything like what's happening here, he said. So they just got completely caught off guard. And they're saying that the search and rescue operations are still ongoing. Hundreds of people on the ground from various units are helping with search and rescue operations. The operations have included drones, helicopters, rescue divers, boats, and high water vehicles after Governor Abbott signed a disaster declaration for several counties hit by the flood. He said at a news conference, the governor said his declaration ensures that all of the counties will have access to every tool, strategy, personnel that the state of Texas can provide them, which will be limitless. Then it goes on to talk about even they're seeing cars all throughout the waters with their lights on, and people could possibly be in them, alive and or deceased. It says that you could also see vehicles coming from up the river with their lights on and hear somebody honking, and they were washing away, but they kept going. So even vehicles, and the Mother Nature in his strength is more powerful than mankind can even handle. Some of the victims have been identified in the young campers. The confirmed deaths at Camp Mystic include an 8-year-old, Nanny McCowan of Austin. Her father told CBS News. Chloe Childress, an 18-year-old counselor from the Houston area, where she recently graduated from Kincaid School. 2 girls from Dallas, an 8-year-old Alois Peck, and 9-year-old Lily Bonner. They also passed away. A third 8-year-old girl, Hadley Hannah, was among the campers that were missing as of Monday. There was even 2 sisters from Dallas, a 13-year-old Blair Harbor and 11-year-old Brooke Harbor, were among those confirmed to have passed away Saturday by the St. Rita Catholic Community Church in Dallas. The sisters were not at Camp Mystic, but were staying with their grandparents in an area alongside the Guadalupe River where the flooding occurred. Their grandparents remain unaccounted for, according to the church records. The girls' parents were in a separate cabin and not harmed. So these two little girls ended up getting washed away and died, allegedly holding their hands tight and holding each other when they were found. And they were not even at Camp Mystic. They were near the Guadalupe River, and unfortunately did not make it. This is such a sad story. But what it is a cautionary tale. You hear people, even in St. Louis, you'll hear folks in the summertime that like to swim in the Missouri River and the Mississippi River. And every year there is at least 3 or 4 young folks that end up drowning in either the Missouri River or the Mississippi River. We as human beings, we get awfully arrogant about thinking that we are the creators and the creation of the things that exist around us, and we are not. There is a higher spiritual being, whether you call it God or Mother Nature, that is the precursor or the precursor or the predecessor to our existence here on earth. And sometimes through our human arrogance, we think that we can supersede the things that have been created from the unknown. This is a natural disaster created by Mother Nature, I believe. And when Mother Nature opens up her power, there is very little that human beings can do about it. This is a very sad story. It also mentions that the campsite on the strip known as, the campsite where Camp Mystic was, it was also known as Flash Flood Alley. It's called Flash Flood Alley. And there's a person, Austin Dixon, who's the CEO of the Community Foundation of the Texas Hill Country, told the Associated Press that the foundation is a charitable endowment that collects donations to help nonprofits responding to this disaster. So they're out trying to provide some kind of help and tutelage. There was another young girl named Eleanor Lester, who was 13. She told the AP that she and her cabin mates were excavated from Camp Mystic by helicopter. Her cabin was on an elevated ground, but younger campers bunked in cabins situated alongside the riverbank. Those were the first to flood. Younger campers came up the hill for shelter. The camp was completely destroyed. She said it was really scary. Everyone I know personally is accounted for, but there are people missing that I know of, and we don't know where they are. And there was another one. There was an 8-year-old camper who was swept 6 miles down the river but survived. Sisters Natalie and Emily Rayford told CBS News correspondent Jason Allen that all of a sudden we just hear somebody say, "Help, help." One of the sisters said, she said that her cabin was flooding and someone opened a window and she just flew out of the window. What kind of experience? That has to be one of the most traumatic experiences for anybody, let alone a young person, a preteen, to go through that kind of devastation. When the tornado hit here in St. Louis on May 16th, just to hear that noise and be inside my house and my windows exploding, and it felt like the roof was coming off my house, it scared the holy bejeebies out of me. So you're talking about PTSD. These young people who survived are going to need mental and psychological therapy probably for the rest of their lives. The closest association I would think that you would compare this to for the survivors of this flood would be somebody that survived, a soldier surviving a war zone or being at war. So they are going to need all of the manifestations of love and caring and psychological assessments and mental therapy to navigate their way uh, following this devastating flood. So it's unfortunate for the people that lost their lives, but it's also unfortunate for the ones that survived. There's going to be survival's remorse. There's going to be a lot of confusion. These are preteen and teenage girls that are still trying to understand who they are and what this world is about and what their purpose is. And then to dump this on them, I think is a very unfortunate circumstance and will have lifelong lasting effects forever. So we need to pray for these folks. If you can send donations and help, as I said, here in St. Louis, we went through a devastating tornado, $1.6 billion worth of damage. FEMA and Red Cross are doing all the things they can do. And I'm sure that those organizations are helping down in Texas. There were multiple counties affected by it, and there's been over 100 fatalities. Tell me what you think of this story. This has been a Trevor Donald Experience.